What's up? Welcome back. This is episode 11 of building out clearbnb, a vacation rental platform where there's like transparent pricing. We're using Ruby on Rails. And in this episode, we're going to set up background jobs. There are a couple other episodes we've already done on this channel setting up background jobs. So I'm going to kind of go through it fast. I also sort of forget how exactly how I've set it up in the past. So we are going to just go through the active job basics process here for getting it all set up. And then, yeah, we should be good to go. So I think we want to say like Rails active, there's like active job, Rails generate. So we can generate jobs with Rails G job and then like the name of the job. But then like actually like in queuing it or setting up your queue adapter here, I think what we want to do is set ours up as Resque. So let's go through the process of setting up Resque. So we're going to install the gem Resque. So we're going to go to our gem file, go to the bottom, install gem Resque, bundle install. Then in application RB, we're going to set the queue adapter to Resque. So we're going to open up application RB and we're going to set the queue adapter to Resque. Then in our rake file, we're going to require this. Okay. And then we are going to, we're not using Rails 5.x, we're on Rails 7, but I don't think we need that. Rails G job, and then we generate a job. Okay, and then we queue as default, perform, blah, blah, blah. Is that really it? That can't be it, can it? Run Redis server. Okay, so I guess I'm gonna open up a new tab here and say Redis server. That should fire up the Redis server. I thought we needed to like configure Redis's thingy, like the URL to Redis or something. But I'm sure I'm forgetting something. Also, we want to like actually rake. We want to run this rake queue job thing so that it runs. CD clearbnb queue. So this is like saying run all the queues and rake Resque work on all the queues. And that just hangs and waits for jobs to be added to the queue. But I really don't think that's all that it takes. But maybe I hope I'm wrong. So additionally, you can mount the web version of Resque to your project. Add this to your routes.rb. What? Okay, so this is cool. Routes.rb. So down here, we're going to add this thing. So authenticate user. I don't want just anyone to be able to go see jobs. All right, so we'll change the constraints to the Resque web constraint so that it should only mount if I'm logged in as user 1. So user.find1, that should be me. And okay, so now if we, whatever, like that should be fine. So if we go to like localhost 3000/jobs, we might need to restart the server to uninitialized Resque. Yeah, I don't know if I restarted it since we installed the Resque gem. So uninitialized constant Resque server. Do I need to like require that or something? Apparently. Okay. Oops. All right, cool. So this is showing our jobs. We already have some failed jobs, huh? Create Stripe customer job from 4 minutes ago. Huh. I persist. Okay, so this is old stuff. So clear failed jobs. Okay, this is from another Rails application. All right, so now what we should be able to do is test this out by generating a new job by saying Rails G job. I guess like what the whole point I want to use a background jobs. Well, there's a couple reasons. Number one, when we're interacting with the Stripe API, I want to like create customers and create products and create checkout sessions and things like that in the background. And I also want to handle events for webhooks in the background. And because we're not going to talk about the Stripe stuff too much right here, what I want to do is I'm going to create this job and call it like process event or handle event. Or maybe just event, like the event job. And that should be solid. So Rails G job, yep, okay. Rails G job event, okay. So this should create an event job class for us. And it did. It's queued as default, and it is going to be performed with the event ID. So we don't have an event ID, so Rails G model event. So when I'm building a webhook system, I like to have an event model that has all the JSON for the event, the type of the event, the source of the event, when the event happened, and then a status. And I want to be able to reprocess those events locally. Not every single webhook provider has like a way to retry events. So I do my best to try to just get the data as fast as I can from the third party, return with an ACK, and then kick off a background job to go process that event data. And so here what I'm going to do is I'm going to say we want to store the like request body as like a blob or something, or text, I don't know. And then we want to store the status as an integer. Again, it's going to be some sort of like pending, processed, failed situation. We want like an error message, and that's going to be text. If processing the event fails, we're going to store it in as an error message. We want like a source. This is going to be text or string. It's going to be a string. The source is going to be like Stripe or MailChimp, or if we integrate with Slack or like Airbnb or any of these different platforms, then the source might be that platform. This is like where the event is coming from. And then almost all of these are going to have an event type, and I will just try to keep track of the event types for each of the events that are coming in. Events might also have IDs and whatever else, but the goal is I'm just going to like take in the request body, stuff it into this request body's text, store a status for the event, store the error message, source, etc., etc. So this is going to be our webhook model just to start off. There's ways we can get more complex. I am not going to do signature verification, but in practice you should. Maybe we should for Stripe. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, so we've got this thing. Let's go take a look. It definitely needs a request body. It's got its integer status default to 0. And okay, Rails DB migrate. Okay, Rails G controller webhooks. So this is going to be like where our webhooks are ingested, or like the webhook events are ingested. Routes. Okay, and then we're going to say resources, webhooks only create. And then we'll go to our webhooks controller and def create. This one we want to skip CSRF authentication because these are going to be post requests, not when a user is on our site, but when the user is, or like it's going to be a third-party system sending a post request to our controller. So there's no CSRF protection, and it doesn't really make sense. Okay, and then we need to create an event, but let's annotate so that we can remember the exact names for the columns on the event model. Back to our webhooks controller, and then we'll split this with event. And okay, so we're going to say event.create bang, and we want to give it the request body. And for this, what I think makes the most sense, I'm debating whether or not we should just use the JSON for the event, or if we should just plop the whole request body, like the raw request body in there, and like JSON parse it later down the road. And I'm thinking between params or the actual like request.raw post or something like that. Yeah, request.raw post, I think. Rails request.raw post. I think that's going to give us the raw body, right? It's like the untouched body, useful for services that need to work with raw requests directly. I think, maybe, I don't know. Status is pending. It's going to start off as pending. This is going to be an enum listing, just like this. and it's going to start off as pending, and it might go to processed, or it could even be processing and then failed. And whatever, we'll just leave it with those three states for now. I generally will also have processing, but whatever, this is good. So we also need, if we have an error message, we'll update that later. The source is going to be params source, and we're going to add that as something into, yeah, let's, okay. And event type, I'm debating whether or not we should have an event type or not. And yeah, okay. So the source, let's go back to our routes. Let's actually add, let's make this a little different. Let's say like, we're going to add a post to /webhooks/source like this. And this is going to go to the webhooks create. And the reason that I want to tack on source on the end is like, that'll allow us to just create as many webhook endpoints as we want and just add like /Stripe or /MailChimp or whatever to the end, and then we'll be able to keep track of what those sources are. Okay, so now we should have an event. Now I want to say like event job.process later or perform later event. And I want it to go like handle that event somewhere else, and then render JSON of like message success or something. We're just like going to spit back success immediately if this event create doesn't fail. And I think I'm convincing myself that this should actually just be like not the raw post request, but whatever. Let's start with this for now. And what I want to do is just try to test it out. And so the way that we can test this is with another thing here. So we're going to split the pane vertically, and we are going to say Stripe login. So we're going to use the Stripe CLI to connect to our Stripe account, which is here. Let me do this again. And okay, clearbnb, allow access. I'm going to close this view, come back to the CLI. Now if we say like Stripe customers list, that should give us back our customers. And Raymond Demore, we already played around with that. Okay, so now what we can do is use Stripe listen -- forward to localhost 3000 webhooks / Stripe. And that means anytime events fire on our Stripe account, they should be forwarded to the local running webhook endpoint. Now what we can do, just to like test this out, is split the pane again and say Stripe trigger like checkout.session.completed. And okay, so that is firing events. They're coming in, they're all being processed. So that is amazing. And those events are being, or like the jobs are being enqueued. We have this rake rescue queue thing running. But I'm not sure if those jobs are actually firing off. So we can say event.count. Whoops, reload. Event.count. Okay, so now we have 5. We have 5 events. So event.last. Okay. So in this events request body, we do have the incoming raw request body. We've got the status is pending. The source was Stripe. We have no error message, no event type. Cool. Now, as part of this event job, when we perform the event, I think we want to just say event here, and then we want to process the event. So processing the event is going to involve like dealing with whatever JSON is inside that, or like dealing with whatever content is inside that event's body. So here, I think what we want to do is switch on the event's source. So what am I doing? Okay, Ruby switch statement. So we're gonna do a case. It's actually a case statement. So we're gonna do a case statement in Ruby. So case event.source. And when it's Stripe, Otherwise, we want to like event.update, like error message is going to be unknown source, event.source. Okay. So when the source is Stripe though, we're going to say like the data is event dot, what is it? Event dot request body. And we want to JSON dot parse that. So that's going to give us our event data. And then what we can do is we can say like data. Actually, you know what? What we can do here is use we can use the Stripe Ruby method to deserialize that JSON data into the right kind of event. So we're going to switch to a Ruby backend here. So Stripe event construct from JSON.parse event.request body symbolize true. That gives us our event. Now we can say maybe we might like have another method here called like handle Stripe event, and here we can say case event.type when checkout.session.completed do something. So we can handle several different event types. We're going to start off with checkout session completed, and eventually we're going to like do something with the checkout session and the reservation. But for now, we'll just like print out like the reservation, or like let's print out the checkout session ID event.data.object.id. So this is actually, I don't know, like let's do checkout session is event.data.object. That way we have like a nice name for it, checkout session. And we can say like metadata or something. And see if we can actually like get that printed out. Handle Stripe event. All right, so from Rails console, we should be able to say event job.perform now for one of these events. Oh, the other thing is that like, yeah, after we finish performing the event, we want to mark, or we want to update the status. So in this case, the status is failed. And in this case, the status is going to be like begin rescue end, or like finally. I can't remember if we have a finally. Ruby try catch finally, or what it's called. Ensure. Okay, ensure. Yeah, so if there's an error, we want to say event.update error message is like e.message or something, and the status is failed. But if we don't have any error messages, then we want to say event. Actually, we don't even want to ensure. We want to do it here. Event.update status processed, and error message is empty. The reason I'm setting it empty here is that in the case where we're retrying something and reprocessing it, we want to like clear out any old error message. And yeah, I think that's fine. I think we can also say event type here is event.type. That will be helpful in the future. Whew. Okay, so what we're saying is like we get some event from some source, and then we want to process that using our new background job called event job, perform later, or we can say perform now, and we're going to pass in event.last. And what we're expecting this to do is to enqueue a background job that's going to run with Resque, that's going to use like Redis as its backing server and blah, blah, blah. And it's going to come into this perform method and it's going to check the source. Is it about Stripe? If so, do all this stuff. If not, then we don't know about the source and fail the event and mark it as failed. At the end of the day, we shouldn't have any pending events. Like after they're all processed, we shouldn't have any pending. And if there are any that are failed, we want to just be able to go back and rerun those or figure out, did we just add a new source and we didn't have any processing for it, or what the deal is. So let's run this. Oh gosh, we have a name collision here. Okay, so this is going to be the Stripe event, and we'll say handle Stripe event, then Stripe event.type, and yeah, because this event here is the active record model. So let's try it again. Okay, so we've got a begin update. The status is updating this. Okay, so it's updating the status to be processed, the error message to be empty, the event type to be checkout session completed, and we should have seen something happen in the logs, maybe? Yeah, in queued something. Okay, so now if we say event.last, we should see, okay, so we see that it is processed. Okay, fantastic. Now, one thing that I've seen in the past is like for each event type, you could say like handle Stripe checkout session completed, and then pass in like event.data.object, and then wait for it to do its thing like way down the line. Or you could even here have like, event : Stripe : checkout session completed call, and pass in the event type and whatever. All of those are cool ways to sort of build up over time. That makes it really nice and testable because you're just testing like, what is the class that is responsible for dealing with a very specific event type from a very specific channel? I'm going to leave that as an exercise for the reader. So you could go and set that up if you want. But for now, it looks like our background jobs are processing as expected. They're running in the background, and we've got background processing set up. So in the next episode, we're going to jump in and we're going to round out our reservation processing so that when we receive a reservation, we can mark it as paid or booked or whatever, based on that checkout session being completed and the payment being successful. So that's what we're going to do in the next episode. Thanks so much for watching. Hopefully this was useful. I really love webhooks. They're super fun, and they're incredibly useful. So by having these tools of like the event object that can store any generic stuff from any source, you get your webhook endpoint that's mapped to a source, and you can take it in, then you pass it off to a background job. The background job figures all the stuff out and handles updating that event object underneath the hood. And you can go and update or create, subordinate objects as part of that webhook processing. Really, really good flow in my experience. So in the next episode, we'll get back into it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.